Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So Procter and Gamble created a controversial ad about racism in America, and they have come under fire by conservatives, and some white people and some, African American conservatives. And I just want to provide my commentary on this issue. For those of you who have not seen the video, I encourage you to watch it. I will include a link in the description box so that you can watch it for yourself. The only reason why I'm not playing it now is because I don't want to have to deal with copyright issues. But in the video, it talks about racism. It shows examples of parents talking to their African American children about the issues of racism. It has different time periods. It has a period from the 50s and 60s to the 70s and 80s into modern times. And I'll just summarize some of the points that are raised in the video. Like, it starts off with a young African American girl who's talking to her mother about what some white person told her. And they basically said that she's beautiful for a black girl. And then, her mother basically tells her that is not a compliment. You are beautiful, period. And then there's another scene that shows a young African American boy running away from a group of white people, white boys who are chasing him. And the mother talks to the boy and tells him that the N word is an ugly word and all that kind of stuff. And, there are other scenes, including a boy who's on a baseball field and he's facing some unfair discriminatory treatment. And, the parents talk to him about the same privileges, about not having the same privileges and being treated fairly and all that kind of stuff. And, their words of encouragement, like inspiring young people that they can basically do anything they want to. And, encouraging young people to do even better, that you have to be twice as good as other people in order to get recognition in a racist society. And that's real important. And then there's some scenes that involve policing issues. Like there's a mother who tells her son or to basically have his ID and stuff like that if he's going out. And then there's another scene where a black mother is talking to her daughter about how to deal with the police when she gets stopped. Dealing with all this whole evolution of racism in America, this continuing problem of racism in America from generation to generation. So you have these people criticize this ad. And what I'm going to do is go through some of these points of criticism and provide my commentary. So if you can just bear with me. Um, and this is what, before I get to the criticism, I'm going to just read a statement from Procter and Gamble. They have this My Black is Beautiful campaign, and they're promoting it, as this article says, with talk about bias. And basically, Procter and Gamble said this. They said, these real life conversations about conscious and unconscious bias are too common in homes across the country and weigh heavy on parents and children of many different backgrounds. We take seriously the opportunity to spark dialogue on what we all can do to put an end to the harmful effects of bias and motivate true change. So that's a statement from the company, and that's exactly what they have done. By posting this ad, they have generated a discussion about racism in America. I mean, the example of a parent talking to their kids about how to interact with the police, putting their kids on notice that they may be stopped by the police and harassed by the police. That's something that's very timely, especially right now, with all these incidents of police brutality, endless incidents. And you've heard all the names that I've mentioned before. Every other day, you turn on the news and you hear about another young black person killed by the police. And often these young people are killed on videotape. It's captured on videotape, and often, many times, there are no charges even brought against the police. And when there are charges, the police walk. So this is a very important issue. And these are very real conversations that were featured in this ad. Conversations that Black parents actually have with their children. We've had these discussions. I remember my mother teaching me how to interact with these police. I remember as a young person being in the car, my uncle was driving and a police officer stopped him and had him get out the car and frisked him and all that kind of stuff simply because he's a Black man driving in a predominantly white area. This is nothing new. These are the experiences of Black people. And this ad is basically putting a mirror in America's face and exposing America's ugliness, exposing the daily conditions that a lot of Black people have to deal with, what we have dealt with throughout the history that they feature there until today. I mean, despite all the progress that we have made as a society, we still live in a world where police will stop and harass Black people because of the color of their skin. We still live in a world where police will kill Black people because of the color of their skin, and there will be no justice. It's analogous to the lynchings that took place. That's what we have today, modern day lynchings. These problems are real. They are not imaginary problems. And that's the thing, that's the reason why these people hate to see this ad, because it shows America for what it is. It shows the problems that African Americans have had to deal with while in this country. Even today, we still deal with these problems. So I'm going to read through some of these criticisms real quick. You know, you had people on Twitter making these statements like this person said Procter and Gamble is racist. I mean, and that's a common tactic that these bigots and narrow-minded racist white people use. You know, the first thing that they do is when someone speaks out boldly and courageously against racism and white supremacy, the first thing that they want to do is switch things around and label that person who is condemning racism. They want to label that person as a racist in order to silence that person. There is nothing racist about speaking out against racism. There is nothing racist about exposing racism. There's nothing racist about showing the world the realities that African Americans have to deal with. And then this person said right here that this is a propaganda video with no truth. And then they talk about how Black violence toward police is what you're promoting. That's what they claim in this article. Nowhere in this ad is there any kind of words encouraging violence against police. What they are talking about is police harassment. What they are talking about is racial profiling. That's what they're talking about. They are not encouraging any kind of action against the police. They are merely speaking about the injustices that happen in our communities. They are merely speaking out against police misconduct. Speaking out against misconduct and unlawful behavior by the police is not encouraging violence. It is simply pointing out a problem. That's what it is. And here they say boycott. You know, they're asking for a boycott. They said how despicable and shameful of you to use racism to sell products, to make white people evil and Black people innocent victims. This ad is not making white people evil. It's not designed to make white people appear to be evil. What they are speaking out against is racism. It's not a universal condemnation of white people, because obviously this company is a white company, white-owned company. So they're not depicting themselves as evil. They are depicting racist behavior as wrong. And I mean, I know that people don't want to deal with the problem of racism. They try to avoid it by saying that when people speak out against the injustices that are happening to them, the indignities that they suffer from, all of a sudden they say, well, these people suffer from victimology. All they're doing is being victims. When the fact of the matter is, when the police are killing our people and there is no justice, our people are victims. Eric Garner was a victim when that officer choked that brother to death. Sam DuBose was a victim when that officer blew his head off and didn't get convicted. They decided not to even prosecute that man, that pig masquerading as a cop. When Terrence Crutcher was killed, shot down on video camera, he was a victim. When that officer threw around that girl in Texas, she was a victim. A girl in a bathing suit, a teenager. She was a victim. When that police officer threw the kid across the classroom, I think that was in South Carolina, that girl was a victim. There is a problem, and we are victims of that problem. I mean, we wouldn't be in this country, as Malcolm X said, if some enemy didn't kidnap us and bring us here. Our history in this country is one where we have been victimized by an oppressor. You can't say that we aren't victims when we were enslaved for hundreds of years and then subjected to virtual slavery after the Emancipation Proclamation, and then Jim Crow, and then modern day conditions of racism. You can't say that we're not victims. So let me continue on with some of these other comments that people make. I've already addressed the point about this, these people claiming that this is a racist video. Speaking out against racism is not racism. That's like saying, accusing a firefighter of being an arsonist when the firefighter is there to put out the fire. And then they talk about boycotting goods due to race baiting. It's not race baiting. It's just bringing attention to a very important issue. Race baiting is what your president did when he ran for office, when he talked about immigration, when he talked about the Muslims, and when he made all these statements encouraging violence during his rallies, when he talks about using the Justice Department to attack affirmative action, when he encourages police officers to rough up suspects, when he calls for law and order, when he calls for programs like New York's Stop and Frisk program, when he openly endorses racial profiling, that's real race baiting. These people who leave these tweets are just ignorant as hell. They are blind, deaf, and dumb. And then you have this conservative, this black conservative who said this, the ad is overly dramatic. And then he points out how it devalues the need for a nuclear family, as only one scene showed a father present. And really, that's like a side issue. There was as he points out, there was a father present. And often parents may have a separate conversation with their child. Like, both parents don't necessarily have to have the same conversation with the child at the same time, or both be talking to the child at the same time. I mean, this is a side issue and designed to get us off into a discussion about, family values and all that kind of stuff, and away from a discussion about racism in America. And it's like, that's one of the first things that they do. They trot out these Negro mouthpieces, these modern day Sambos and coons, to try to attack anything that speaks out on this issue of racism in America. So let's continue on. And then this person goes on to say that the only talk that he got as a kid or whatever from his parents was about personal accountability, personal responsibility. It wasn't about white people have this, white people have that. Now, obviously, nobody downplays the importance of personal accountability and responsibility. Nobody's downplaying that. But that's not even what the topic is. The topic is racism. No matter how much how responsible you are or how accountable you are, that doesn't eliminate racism in society. I mean, if you look at a President Obama, for instance, this is a man who took personal responsibility. He got an education. He became a successful lawyer, a professor, and then he went on to become a state senator and then a U.S. senator and then president of the United States. But despite all of that, at the end of the day, as I have said in prior videos, he was just a nigger in this society. They disrespected this man. So no matter how personally accountable he was or how responsible he was, at the end of the day, the society treated him as the N-word. They had racist photographs depicting him and his family as a family of chimpanzees and apes and monkeys and such. They had photographs depicting him as an Arab terrorist. They asked this man to produce his papers. So it's not about personal responsibility. I mean, personal responsibility and racism are two separate things. I mean, you can't behave your way out of racist oppression. And no amount of personal responsibility can negate the fact that racism is prevalent in today's society. I mean, the numbers bear this out. When you look at the percentages of unarmed black men who are um, shot and killed by police compared to other groups of people, the numbers speak for themselves. When you look at the health disparities, the wealth disparities, the education disparities, when you look at the sentencing disparities, when you look at every aspects of society, those numbers speak for themselves. It's not just about some personal accountability. You can be a dignified, accountable person, responsible person, and still get stopped by these stinking police and harassed by these police. So it's about time that we deal with the reality and stop running away from it with these deflections, with these smoke screens. We just got to call things as they are. And, I commend Procter Gamble for being bold enough to put this ad out to speak on these issues. It's like it's okay for people to speak on just about any issue nowadays except for the issue of racism in America. You can talk about animal rights. You can talk about gay rights. You can talk about women's rights. You can talk about the immigrants. But when it comes to the black man and woman and the issue of racism, all of a sudden it's off limits. All of a sudden you come under attack for posting ads or speaking out on these issues. So let's continue on through this article. And they say that this is nothing more than a marketing ploy to get black women on the internet to buy their products. It's a marketing campaign to get people to come purchase things. It's nothing else. It's not some kind of PSA. It's not altruistic, meaning it's not like just out of the goodness of their heart. It's about money. And of course, I mean, a company is motivated by money. So obviously there is probably some kind of connection between how this will benefit them financially and all that kind of stuff. I'm not doubting that. I'm not going to say that that's not the case with any ad. I mean, what companies do is they target certain products to certain groups of people. They have ads that are designed to appeal to various markets. So obviously this will have some kind of financial benefit because people are going to say, well, this product cares about my issues, so I'm going to purchase the product. So yeah, I mean, there's probably a convergence of interests, like the interest of, this issue of racism being addressed, converging with this interest of making money and opening up a market to a group of people that may not purchase your products at the level that you would like them to purchase it. So I don't see anything wrong with somebody using this to market certain products and stuff like that. But you can't deny the merits of the message. You can't deny the importance of the message. And too often these kinds of conversations that you see in this ad are conversations that America needs to hear so they can understand what Black people experience, so they can understand the Black experience.